In this video, I am going to show you how to make this cute little bag. It has a 7-inch zipper on the top. It is fully lined. It has zipper tabs and boxed edges. We're going to go through step by step, and hopefully you will be able to make a bag just like this on your own. So let's get started. So what I did is yesterday I went ahead and cut out all of the fabric that I needed for the next 3 bags that I'm going to make. As I was cutting it out, I wrote down all of the information that I needed for each project. So this is the floral berry bag. I am going to have a red lining with no interfacing, but I did attach interfacing to the outer material. I am also using a 7-inch white zipper. And I am going to, once again, try to create zipper tabs. So I have a couple strips of fabric that I will be able to cut down for those, and we will give that a try. I also need red thread, which is already in my machine from my last sewing project. So I don't have to worry about rethreading the machine. And I also have my dimensions. The bag is going to be 9 inches by 7.5 inches. And the reason that I picked this size is the 9 inches has to do with the size of my zipper. My zipper is a 7-inch zipper, but when I add the tabs, I think it'll make it 8 inches on one side. And the thing about zippers is that when it says 7 inches, the 7 inches is going to be this part of the zipper. And so if you have, let me show you. It is going to be 7 inches from this little doodobber right here to where the zipper starts. And so for the bag that I'm going to make, I am going to cut this part right here. But this I am going to cover with a zipper tab. And then this part, the zipper tab will go from where I cut to about right here. And that will give us about 8 inches. And so I cut this material to be 9 inches. Is this the 9 inches? 9 inches. So we've got our 8-inch zipper with tabs in the center. And then that gives us a 1/2 inch on both sides to do our seam allowance. This will allow the zipper tab to sit properly. If you watched my last video, you will realize that my zipper tabs were all the way to the edges. And so when I was trying to sew this part of the project, I had this big thick chunk of material and my needle could not pass through it properly, and I ended up having a lot of issues with my sewing machine, and my bag overall came out very poorly. It did not look good. And this time I am going to keep that all in mind, and so that way I will have room to actually sew my bag properly. Hopefully it'll come out good this time. The first thing I'm going to do is sew together the zipper end. These 2 pieces, I'm going to sew them like that, so that way it will stay together and be just a little easier to work with. So what you want to do is just open your zipper a little bit and then take it to your machine and very carefully just go back and forth a couple times. Then I will trim the strings and go on to the next part. I'm glad I'm doing zipper tabs on this one because right there, the zipper keeps kind of getting stuck. I don't know if it's just a manufacturing issue. So making the zipper tabs is going to cover that. And so I will only be able to open the zipper to like there, which will keep that problem from happening. So what I'm going to do here is measure 3 inches. And then I'm going to cut it. This part doesn't really have to be perfect. You could use your rotary cutter, but this isn't going to show. And I think as long as you get it pretty close to straight, it'll be fine. So what we're going to do is fold this center way. to the center. You get a center crease. I like to take it over to my iron and press it just so you have a nice crease. Then you will open it. Here I am going to fold over the outside edges and line them up with that center crease that I just made. I got these two, and then I will fold this in half again to kind of sandwich everything inside and take it over to my iron again. There's one. I think I will have that side up. I like that side better. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this other side. I'm also taking notes while I do this, so that way I have a better idea of what works best for me, what did and what didn't work. And this way I can reference this without having to pull out a video every time I want to remember how to do zipper tabs. So we got the center crease, we open it up, and then we fold these to the inside. During this part, I line the zipper tabs up to where I want them, and then I cut off the ends of the zipper that might be in my way. It takes me a minute to get it exactly how I want it, but I do want to be sure that I'm not going to be sewing over the little plastic stoppers at the end of the zipper, because my sewing machine will not go through that. Here I sew a straight line down the bottom of my zipper tab, the part that is closest to the zipper teeth. I try to get as close to the edge as possible, and I make sure that both ends are lined up. I then trim the excess fabric that is hanging past the sides of the zipper. After I'm finished, I take the zipper back to the sewing machine and repeat this step for the other zipper tab. I'm super happy with how it has turned out so far. My seams, or the line where I sewed, is a little bit wonky, but still it looks good and it works. What we're going to do now is assemble the first half of the bag. And so what you're going to want to do is have your lining fabric right side up, place your zipper right side up, center it, and then you will place your outer fabric face down. Now, a trick to make sure that you get everything lined up: close your zipper, fold it in half, and you are going to snip a little tiny piece out of the corner. Make sure it's good and lined up, and then snip just a, oh, it keeps moving around. Snip a little tiny piece right here. Okay. You're going to take your fabric, do the same thing. Make sure, yeah. Fold it in half. And then right at this corner, we're going to do just a little tiny snip. It doesn't need to be very big at all, but it will be hidden inside of your bag. Snip. And then, same for your lining. Fold in half, or your outer fabric. I also drew an arrow on my outer fabric right side up, so that way my patterns would line up. Okay. We line up our pieces. And see how easy that is with that center snip? Everything else is lined up really well. And then I am going to take a bunch of clips and just clip everything down. So what I'm going to do, I've got it clipped in place. I have my outer fabric wrong side up, wrong side up. My zipper is right side up and half opened, and then my lining is right side up. I am going to sew down this edge. When I get to the zipper, I will move the zipper to the closed position. So when I get to about right here, which is about an inch from the zipper, I will put my needle down, lift the presser foot, open up the lining, then I will carefully close the zipper, put the lining back down, put down the presser foot, and continue sewing down until I get to the very end of the fabric. Here I lower the needle, raise the presser foot, and reach between the two pieces of fabric to close the zipper before I continue sewing. Okay, here's my first finished piece. My lining got a little bit wonky right there, but I think it's okay. And we open it up, and you can see that once it's a real bag and completely put together, the zipper will be on the outside, and when you open it up, you will be able to get to the lining. See, that'll be the lining on the one side. So now we are going to do the same thing for the fabric on the other side. Here I place my lining right side up. I then put the piece that I just finished on top with the lining piece on top of the other lining piece. I then take the outer fabric, line it up the right way. It will be wrong side up with the piece that we just finished sandwiched in between. I will then clip everything together and take it to the sewing machine and sew down the side. Once again, I must remember to leave the zipper halfway open before I begin to sew. I then take it back to the sewing machine and sew straight down the side. Once again, I must remember to stop sewing and move my zipper. So that was about the luckiest thing ever. I ran out of my bobbin thread at the exact end of finishing my bag. What I'm going to do now, I took my bag over to the iron and I pressed it out away from the zipper on both sides so that I've got these two pieces. And I am going to take it back to the sewing machine and sew a top stitch right along both edges here. So I finished the first top stitch. And now I'm going to sew down the other side with a top stitch to finish it off. So the next thing I am going to do is cut off all these strings, and then I am going to sew the bag together. You are going to piece right sides together and sew all around the outside edges. One thing you're going to want to do is mark a spot here and about here with pins, and you're not going to sew this area. You're going to leave it open because this is where you will reach your hand inside and pull the whole thing right side out. Also, what I like to do is start at one of the pins, and then I am going to, let's say I start at this one. I will sew down, go down this way. When I get here, I will be at the zipper tab. You want your zipper to be folded in toward the inner lining, and you are just going to, this will be closed, and you will just sew straight across. You're not going to go over the zipper tab. The zipper tab ends right here. You're not going to go over the zipper tab. You're going to go right beside it, and you will sew up and onto this portion. You will then sew this part. I'm going to clip it before I sew. You'll sew this part. You'll go all the way around all of the corners and back to this. And once again, you will make sure that your zipper is pushed towards the lining, and you will sew down until you get to where you got it marked right here. Also, you want to be sure, if I didn't say this, your zipper must be open large enough for you to get your hand in there. I'm going to clip everything and take it to the sewing machine, and then I'll get back to you when I'm done. Okay, so far so good. Everything seems to be coming together really well. I'm going to show you how I turn on these corners. I'm at my last corner. So what I like to do, I have this little thing which just helps me keep everything a lot straighter, and I'm telling you, it is wonderful. But there are situations where you're not going to be able to use it, as when I was putting that zipper in earlier, I had a lot of fabric over to the side, and so you wouldn't have been able to see it anyways. But for things like this, I think it works great. So let's go ahead and sew up to as close as we can. Another thing that's kind of neat about this, I'm getting a little uneven there. It's fine, this is my inner lining. When you get, there's measurements on here, and so you can kind of look and see if you're close enough to about the same stitch that you were on this side. I think one more. Okay, then I'm going to drop my foot down. I actually got too close. Oh well. Actually, let's go back a stitch. Okay, drop my foot down, or my needle down, lift up the foot, and then you just rotate the whole thing. And you can see if it's straight by how it lays against this piece. And then you can just drop your foot down, and we are just going to sew until right before this needle. Okay, and then we'll do a little back stitch, and voila, we are done. One thing that I am thinking about is doing boxed corners, because here's what boxed corners look like. This would be a boxed corner right here. It lays flat, and so there's a simple way to do this when we get to the point that we're at. So let me think. This bag would sit like this, but if I put zipper tab or boxed edges, it would lower it down just a little bit, and so then the base would be here, and it would be about this tall, but it would sit on its own. And I think that would be really cute, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. Okay, so for boxed corners, what I'm going to do is you want to reach inside your bag and kind of puff it out a little bit, and then you'll be able to grab, so reach inside and puff it out, and you'll be able to grab the corners, and you can feel your seam. Make sure your seams are lined up on the inside. And then I'm going to take my tape measure 1 inch, and I'm just going to put a little mark there first, just to visualize it. Okay, and so what I want to do is I will take it to the sewing machine, and I will sew straight across that spot on that corner. And I'm going to do this to all 4 corners. So I really struggled to get this last piece of the lining to lay flat before trying to sew it. So what I did is I used some pins and I pinned it here, I pinned it across here, and I pinned it down here. It goes all the way through, so that way it stays in the triangle shape. And then since this is going to be my inner lining, I want it to be a little bit smaller than the outer, so I am going to sew on just the inside of that line that I made. So what you're going to want to do is take your scissors and cut on the outside of those lines, those sewing lines that we just made. So we will take and just cut about 1/4 of an inch, I guess. 1/8 of an inch, I don't know. I would say, yeah, it's about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to cut on each side. So one thing I didn't take to note was that I needed to be sure that my seam inside was folded the same direction. So I think what I'm going to do is be a little janky here. I'm going to cut into it, but just a little bit, so that way it kind of just folds the direction that it needs to. Oopsie. So in the middle, it's going to be a little bit weird, but you don't want to get any closer to this seam. Lesson learned. Be sure that your thing is folded the same direction. And the next thing we're going to do is reach our hand in here, and we're going to grab this inner lining and just pull it, more strings, right side out. Grab a corner and just kind of work it through the hole that you left. Hopefully you remember to leave your zipper open so that you can pull this through. And look at that, see, it stands up a little bit, which is the whole point of doing the boxed corners. Okay, I'm going to run this over to the iron and just kind of iron out some of these wrinkles a little bit before I sew up the inner lining. So I'm just going to pull that out for now. Our final step, I'm just going to take it to the sewing machine, and I am going to turn this part inside. Turn this part inside, and it kind of lays on its own, and then you basically just sew across the bottom, and then that part will be done. Look at that, I finished it and it looks really good. My zipper tabs look good, zipper works, inside looks good, boxed edges, it sits great, the pattern is cute. I am so excited at how well this bag came out, and I hope that you found this tutorial way more helpful than my last one. And now I am just going to marvel at the beauty that is this little bag. Also, I am going to make the zipper pull attachments at some point, but I'm going to do that after I get the other bags completed. But until then, look at it. Look at it. You should do this. Do it. Make a bag. It's not that hard. It's a little scary and you might mess up, but you might get it right. And hopefully if you follow some of the steps in the tutorial that I just did, you can do it. Have a great day. Bye.